Let's get it Star Wars. Let's get it Star Wars in here. Let's get it Star Wars. Let's get it Star Wars in here.
A small rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Well, I think we're just 2 months away now for the big premiere of Ahsoka. 2 months? Isn't it August? Is it August 23rd? I think. As we're recording this show, 2 months to go. We've got some updates on Ahsoka this week. Got some new interview highlights from Rosario Dawson, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Natasha Liu, or Dizzo. Be the big trio for that series. Also, some Andor updates. What's it like being on the set without Tony Gilroy? We're going to hear from Stellan Skarsgård. He'll give us that bit of info. Also, Star Wars and pop culture. We got a whole bunch of them that we've been trying to get to that are just fantastic. So you're going to have to anticipate that later on in the program. So grateful to be with you once again this week on Rebel Force Radio. Thank you for hanging out with us. As I said just a few moments ago, we will be counting down the weeks, right now the months, till the premiere of the newest live-action Star Wars series to hit Disney Plus, Ahsoka Season 1. The anticipation is at a fever pitch with all Star Wars fans, including this Star Wars fan. You know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Rebel Force Radio's back, coming at you hotter than a Mustafar Miner's armpit. That's how hot it is. And that's hot, baby. That's hot. And I'm glad we're back here for more RFR. A lot of people are worried, hey, is this going to be like the fourth or fifth show in a row? I'm going to be complaining. Jimmy Mack, me. I'm going to be complaining about Reva and other Inquisitors surviving lightsabers through the gut. It has been a recurrent theme, I think, with me. That's an itch I need to get scratched as a fan. How does that happen? Does anyone have an explanation for it? If you do, call us on the voicemail or send us an email at show@rebelforceradio.com. But I've heard some sort of vague rationale for why that can occur, but I still have yet to be satisfied enough because I feel it like it destroys the integrity of the sacred lightsaber. This lightsaber is your life. Obi-Wan was talking to me when he said that in Attack of the Clones. And I fear anything that diminishes the integrity of that weapon from a more civilized age.
Yeah, it's supposed to be deadly when it needs to be, and you would think going right through the gut. That would be it. That would be it.
Over on Qui-Gon Jinn.
Right? So there is definitely a precedent for this, but I don't know. The gut wound.
I have a hope.
I mean,
I do have my only hope is this week StarWars.com announced that Marvel Comics will be doing an adaptation of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. So it'll be like a 6-issue adaptation, each issue being an episode of the show, and I'm hoping maybe there's an opportunity to expand a little bit and give us just a tiny bit of exposition, some sort of reasoning why that happens, why characters are being stabbed and then just showing up as if nothing happened. So that's coming out in September. It's written by Jody Houser, who wrote the Kenobi series. So I don't know. When Mandalorian was had received the comic adaptation from Marvel, it was very beat for beat. Dialogue consistent. Really no no insight into the story outside of what was presented.
It didn't add anything, unlike previous adaptations where you'd get, because they were based oftentimes, Jim, where they were, I think this is the problem, right? The adaptations were sometimes being developed and worked on while the film was being made. So they'd have earlier drafts of the scripts, they'd have maybe earlier concept art. So even if it wasn't something completely new, it was like maybe a little different version, a little twist, a little spin. But these are coming, in this case, years after the series aired, so it is going to be most likely beat for beat, because otherwise people go, well, that's not what happened in the show. That's not what that looked like. So, they're going to adapt. It also says season 2 of Mando, by the way, as well as this Kenobi series.
Yeah. And I like them. I really do like the Mandalorian adaptation, but it's word for word. There's nothing really different about it. So we'll see. I have fingers crossed. Maybe they'll put a little verbiage in there about what went down and how that's possible, but who knows? I really think that's something that we need to learn about, and that's it. I'm done talking about it. I'm done complaining about the Inquisitors surviving lightsabers.
No more?
That's it. It's over. I'm going to hold out until this fall and see if Marvel provides answers. If not, I don't know. I might have to go to some extremes, crash some red carpets, at least a convention center or two. When that mic gets hot, it's time for Q&A with the cast and crew of the Kenobi show. I'll be in line, pal. You bet I'll be in line. Spam some creatives and celebs with some sort of hashtag campaign. Mm-hmm. I might have to bring this to Ewan McGregor.
Lightsabers kill.
I might have to bring this to Ewan McGregor himself.
Wow.
So
going all the way to the top, the star, the producer. Jeez.
I think that's the guy to go to, right?
I would say.
But there's other mysteries in the Star Wars galaxy. And we have one coming up late in the show in listener feedback. I hope we have time to get to this week because it's a real funny one.
Yeah.
And it comes from the prequels, and that's all I'm going to say about it. But, we got a lot of good stuff going on this week, and I love getting together and talking the wars and hearing from insiders and cast and crew, and that's what this show is going to be all about this week on Rebel Force Radio. Streaming series updates from the cast of Ahsoka, Andor, and the Mando himself, Pedro Pascal, and this all comes at us via interview highlights Jason and I collected from across the web this week. And as Jason said, Star Wars and pop culture is coming at you, and we're going to be featuring the NBA's all-new #1 draft pick and much more. So,
how do you say his name, by the way? I was looking at this. I'm very intimidated.
I got the Victor part. Many NBA players be on the court when Victor Wembanyama makes his NBA debut for the San Antonio Spurs next season. So he's one of these guys they say is a generational talent. He's going to turn the NBA inside out and upside down, blow us away with his 7'5" height and talent, and
Wookiee height, man. That is Wookiee height.
Yeah, so they're calling him the generational talent. That's what they call these younger players who are coming up nowadays. The ones that really have potential to change the game, like LeBron and Michael Jordan did, and Magic and Larry Bird, all of them. So we'll see. But how does this crisscross? How does this intersect with Star Wars? Well, you just got to wait and find out.
Got to find out.
Yeah.
One of the things, Jim, you mentioned we love hearing from the creatives and the cast and the crew of these things. We also love hearing from our listeners, and it's our listeners that keep us in check. And this week was no exception. I'm talking about Hera's goggles.
Yeah.
Hera's goggles.
Well, you guys stepped up to the plate because I was wondering, as we were looking at pictures of Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Hera in the upcoming Ahsoka series, live-action Hera. Well, we noted she was wearing that flight helmet and the goggles. And I was wondering, hey, have we ever seen Hera with the goggles actually on? Or was it just some sort of fashion statement she was making?
Yeah.
There
was no practical reason for her to have them on.
Right.
Just
Did she ever
cool.
actually use them? So I asked you guys if you could tell us if there's ever been an instance in Star Wars Rebels of Hera actually wearing the goggles, and you guys came through. A whole bunch of you did, like Alex from Detroit, who says, I found an episode in Rebels where Hera wears her fashionable goggles. Season 4, Episode 12, Wolves and ANDOR. She pulls them down when she mounts the Lothwolf. Yes. So... And so that's a nice bonus for Alex from Detroit. He's rewatching Rebels, preparing for Ahsoka, and he caught that moment there with Hera wearing the goggles. And I'll tell you, the goggles look good on or off with Hera. She can make any pair of goggles look great.
I'm just wondering why this particular moment, because I rewatched that part of the episode, and it's cool because Ezra's like, everybody with me? Everybody ready? And Hera very dramatically puts the like that's her sign that she's ready to do some what. Yeah. And she puts the goggles on. Yeah, that's her lock and load.
Well, you have to ride the Lothwolf. I mean, that animal must be able to achieve top speeds. And so you would need the goggles. You ever ride on a motorcycle without any sort of visual protection? You can't even keep your eyes open. The wind is whipping into your eyes so fast. So you need a helmet, you need goggles or something. And so Hera's got the goggles. She knew that there would be some moment where she'd have to ride that Lothwolf. And off she goes. So there she's ready. Maybe there's some night vision.
There could be. It's Star Wars. There's got to be some sort of technical capabilities that these things give you. Maybe some readouts, targeting. Who knows?
Yeah. All of this happened right after Kanan died. Heavy moment. So maybe she didn't want.
Oh, she's covering up her
puffy
tears.
Eyes. She had puffy eyes, like the mascara was smearing, and she was just kind of.
She was ugly crying, and so she put the goggles on. That way nobody could see her cry.
Yeah. So thanks, Alex from Detroit. Thanks everyone who wrote in: Chris Kramer, Nathan Martin, Dan Switzer. You guys all came to the rescue and let us know. Yeah, Hera did actually wear those goggles once. Will she wear them in the Ahsoka series? I don't know about you, Swank, but I'm at the edge of my seat wondering if she's going to be wearing them goggles again.
All right. Well, let's see. We got, how about a little listener feedback? Want to do that?
Yes.
Let's do it.
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message after the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Jimmy. This is Joseph Rosales, a.k.a. the Registered Nerd. Hey, I had a thought process on the Ahsoka, the show. So a couple of shows ago, a caller called in and was like, how do we get to catch people up, that kind of stuff. I had a thought process. Would it be awesome if Dave Filoni put in a kind of a mini crawl or a lead-in? Because, yes, there's going to be some people like, who is this? What's the significance of it? Which is not really bothering me at all because all of us super fans will catch people up. And even then, I think Ahsoka will hold her own without any of the backstory. But I do think that it just brings such a beautiful fruit, if you would, knowing the backstory. So I'm thinking maybe it'd be awesome to differentiate this show with maybe a crawl or maybe a little narrative prior to it, leading into Ahsoka. Back in the Clone Wars, this, that, blah, blah. Anakin Skywalker, aka Darth Vader, had a Padawan, and that Padawan was boom, and then it hit Ahsoka. I don't know, thought process on that, whether or not that'd actually be clean, or actually kind of mess up the tempo. I don't know. Dave Filoni, whatever he's going to do, he's going to knock it out of the park. I have complete faith in him. Either way, looking forward to the show. You guys have a great day. and may the force be with you.
Well, thanks, man. Appreciate the voicemail. By the way, I do encourage everybody to please leave us a voicemail. It is a much better guarantee that we'll get you on the air than just an email, though we will, on occasion, read our emails.
It's an audio format.
Right. I mean, what do you expect? Next, we'll be asking people for videos. Imagine that. Well, you never know. So this deal about getting people up to speed with the character of Ahsoka, and wouldn't it be cool if Dave decided to do it old school style with a crawl?
Yeah.
And as fun as that would be, I think the crawl has to be reserved for the big events. And I'm talking about and I know there's discussion about, Kathleen Kennedy has said that the crawl is coming back, and yet she hasn't spoken about of enumerated films. So we don't know. It's possible that the Rey film could be episode 10. It's possible. And that could be what she's talking about with the crawl. But Jim, I don't know. I mean, looking at Rogue One, looking at even the first Clone Wars movie, Solo, if we dare look at that, I can't say that I totally miss the crawl in the context of what I'm about to watch. I think it's fitting that it doesn't have it, and especially when you get to the television series, I don't know. I just don't think the stage is big enough for the crawl. To me, that crawl is like the 20th Century Fox fanfare, the big Star Wars logo, the crawl. It's reserved for the biggest of the big moments in the Star Wars saga. And I think there's ways that they can disguise some of this exposition in dialogue. Wait, you were once Anakin Skywalker's Padawan? Yes, I was Anakin Skywalker. So there's ways, I'm not saying artfully, but there's ways it could be done.
I agree with you 1,000%. And I think that the crawl needs to be saved for the feature films, because if not, you can run into the danger of overexposing the crawl. I remember there was a time in the 90s where it was showing up on every video game, it seemed, and
even the comic books.
Comic books have the crawl. Even to this day, Marvel still kind of gives you they catch you up with what's going on.
Is that a holdover from classic Marvel? It's not. Okay, so that's not something they're just holding on to for tradition's sake. That's a newer thing. Okay.
Yeah. But like I said, in the 90s, I started to notice it everywhere. And then with fan films, oh my God, it's like a 12-paragraph crawl sometimes. It's like, guys, what the hell? Don't you understand? There's kind of a rhythm to this thing. 3 paragraphs, 2-3 sentences, maybe comprising each paragraph. And Kathy Kennedy did say the crawl will return for the feature films. But you bring up an interesting point. Will the Roman numerals show up?
Right.
I don't think so. And I believe this is because Disney has always been sort of repulsed by the Roman numerals. An author told me back when, this is even before The Force Awakens was released, that they wanted to avoid any sort of Roman numerals in the marketing and in publishing and things like that. So this author was made aware of this directive. And this is all the way back before The Force Awakens even came out. Now, Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, The Rise of Skywalker, they all have the Roman numerals attached, but that's because that machine was already in motion. Prior to Disney having any sort of problem with Roman numerals. But I get it, because it is intimidating. And they believe through their market research and through their consultants and their advertising experts and everything, and their marketing geniuses, that people don't want to see those Roman numerals, that it intimidates them. They don't, it's hard to decipher. You see a bunch of
the Super Bowl throws me off every year. What the hell is that? What Super Bowl is this? I mean, they stick to the Roman numerals, and they have for forever.
They have.
But once you start getting into the 50s and 60s, I have no idea.
Exactly. And I think the NFL they missed a golden opportunity to shy away from those Roman numerals when it came to Super Bowl 50, because they actually marketed it with the numbers 50, because they didn't want to call it Super Bowl L.
What were the Romans thinking?
I get that. But, with a sporting event, it's almost like, the age of the gladiators,
Right,
and
sure,
like,
yes.
It's sort of, it almost is fun to be intimidated by the history of the classic showdown on the frozen gridiron. All of that romance that gets
the WrestleManias. Vince McMahon is kept with the Roman numerals on
he
those
has.
as well. Oh, yeah. Speaking of
similar
gladiator
sort of
type,
feel. Yes, the grapplers return to the Colosseum once again. All of that stuff. And so to see the Roman numerals there, it's almost like a kind of nice little, I don't know. It's just a thing to make you feel the history.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to follow a story and you see the history is prefaced with these weird Roman numerals, and then when you finally decipher it, you're like, oh my God, 10? Yeah, that becomes a hard place for new fans to segue into the scene. It feels like there's too much homework that needs to be done.
I have another theory, and I think that people have pointed out to George how weird it was that he put out 3 movies and then did 3 that took before. And it's like, well, George, you released episode 4, and then you went 4, 5, and 6. Then you went back and did 1, 2, and 3. If Disney goes down the line and says, okay, this is episode 10, this is 11, this is 12, they want the ability and the flexibility to be able to go back and insert stories throughout the saga. And I think by planting the flag of the Roman numerals, it limits them.
That's tough. And plus, that's why they put out a press release saying that Rise of Skywalker Episode 9 is the end of the Skywalker saga. Right. So now you have your episodes 1 through 9 with their Roman numerals and crawls, and off they can go into the sunset. Now, some time has passed. They tried a couple movies without the crawls. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of need the crawl at the beginning of my Star Wars film. That's my moment to really sort of just like put my feet on the ground, sit up straight, take a deep breath, and lock and load for the ride. Okay, I like that. I like that tradition. I like just the moment of sitting there when the Star Wars film is being projected in front of you for the first time. And that's what you're seeing, the logo fading away and the crawl bringing you up to speed with what's happening, what the state of the galaxy is and our heroes at that time. That's always like a pinch me moment when I'm in the theater seeing a new Star Wars film for the first time. It's like, here we go. This is legit. I'm through the threshold and off on another Star Wars adventure. And that little prep time as a film goer, I think, is magic and essential to Star Wars. So I'm glad they're bringing it back, but I don't think the Roman numerals are coming back.
What do you think about the crawl, though, on a series? No?
No, I don't want to crawl on a series. Now, Tom Kane did a great job as the narrator on Clone Wars, sort of serving as a verbal crawl.
That was very clever.
Of each one of those episodes.
That device, I thought. Because it kept the spirit of the serials.
Right. And you had that little fortune cookie blurb they would throw at you right before Tom would come at you with narrative that would get you caught up to where everything is. And that narrative that he was reading could have been a perfect crawl almost every time.
Absolutely. If you go back and the crawls, I'm a big believer as someone in marketing and writing. I go back and I look at those crawls sometimes as inspiration because I think they're so perfectly written. There's not a single unnecessary word in them. Every word is necessary, but there's also no fluff. And it actually tells or sets up the story, I think, beautifully, perfectly. Mm-hmm. They're really, really tight. And not that easy to write, to be honest with you, because when you try to write them or think about writing something that succinct, you tend to want to get more verbose and throw in a lot of adjectives, and they were just great. I think George set the tone beautifully with those.
Yes, I agree with that 1,000%. So I don't think there is a space for the crawl in the series, but I am looking forward to it coming back to make that cinematic experience so much. I mean, you're going through, like I said, the threshold into Star Wars via the crawl. It takes you right in there. Now, George Lucas, he got some heat from 20th Century Fox marketing people, well, constantly. But for the crawl, it was said to him, well, kids can't read this. Kids won't Senate, Galactic Senate. What is this? Kids won't read this. He said, no, but the parents will be there and they can whisper it into their ears. And that makes for a cool little bonding experience as parent and child are being teleported into a whole nother galaxy. This is great, So
I absolutely
and they also
did
said that.
I leaned over and read for all of the sequel films. I read the crawls to both kids. I think Bailey could even read at that point. I still read it to her.
And I did that too with my kids, being fully aware that I was carrying on the tradition that George Lucas had intended when he placed the crawl and also the alien voices with subtitles like Greedo. He just thought, hey, that's the parents can connect with the children in the middle of the movie. Now, of course, you don't want a whole theater reading the crawl out loud. But some theaters, that happens.
Yeah.
That happens,
They get a little carried away.
You hear a whole bunch of people sort of chanting that.
It is a period of civil war.
Yeah.
All right, I have one other thought. They opened the Kenobi series with a really cool flashback montage, almost like a prologue. Now, imagine, because so much of Ahsoka's story is told through animation, you could go either way. Could you say, well, if the animation is really going to be there to stand toe-to-toe with the live-action stuff, put it in there. Or what if you shot a few carefully selected moments with, I don't know, Hayden Christensen, with Rosario Dawson, with Ewan McGregor, something like that, and really blow the socks off of people. So everyone is talking after that premiere episode of Ahsoka, how they opened it up.
Right. The need for a crawl or some sort of catch-up or anything, or, somebody was suggesting RFR does a whole, Ahsoka primer show. And I don't think that's fun. You don't want to hear our take on Ahsoka. You want to go back and if you're really that interested, you want to go back and research it yourself and experience it yourself. You don't want to hear us tell you what to think about Ahsoka and what her history is all about. We're not that type of show to begin with.
I think Disney Plus will probably put together some sort of playlist, curated playlist of Ahsoka best moments. I think they did that with Obi-Wan, before the Obi-Wan series. I feel like there was an Obi-Wan playlist that obviously consisted of the prequels and the original trilogy, and then I think there were some episodes in there from some of the animation, I feel like.
But what if the Ahsoka series does kick off with live-action representation of scenes that we've experienced from Clone Wars and Rebels?
Yeah.
And that's how they get it. Maybe the whole first episode is nothing but that.
Well,
setting the stage.
You notice Sabine has two different hairstyles.
Yes.
She's got
long
the short
and
hair.
short.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So the plot thickens.
Sure does. All right, well, let's get into some of those updates since we're talking about Ahsoka. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news.
Come closer, I have good news.
All right, we're going to kick things off here. As we promised with an Ahsoka update, this comes via Entertainment Weekly. And Jim, you caught some interview highlights from the likes of Rosario Dawson, Natasha Liu Bordizzo, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead, the big trio of actresses. leading Ahsoka.
Yeah, so here we go. Starting with Rosario Dawson talking to Entertainment Weekly about character motivations throughout the series, not only for her own character, Ahsoka, but Rosario sort of sets the stage, much like a crawl would, for what to expect in the Ahsoka series. So take it away, Rosario.
You already know these characters from Clone Wars and now Rebels. And so I think with Ahsoka, you've seen her in Mandalorian and Boba Fett, and you know she's on the hunt for Grand Admiral Thrawn. Obviously, Sabine made a promise, and, I think there's someone top of mind for us that we're looking for, but the man of the hour obviously is Thrawn.
Yeah. Who's the top of mind?
They don't want to say the name, do they?
No, Ezra. Yeah, they're being real specific about that.
It's a 4-letter word.
That might even give a little mojo to our speculation. Could they give us live action catch up to what's happening in the Ahsoka series? And so maybe we'll see the whole deal with Ezra unfold as he gets hijacked on board an Imperial cruiser with Grand Admiral Thrawn and a bunch of other Imperials, and they blast off into space via the Purgles. Will we see that live action? Because that's why they're so careful about spilling the beans about anything. It's almost like, well, wait a second. The show will tell you the story. So they're resistant to even talk about specifics from the Star Wars Rebels animated show. They reference the Rebels animated show, obviously, but they won't get into specifics.
No, they're being vague. So it could mean a couple of things. It could mean, like you were saying, that they consider that almost a spoiler because they're going to really get into specifics in the series, maybe reenact some of those scenes, or this is hard to imagine with Dave at the helm, or are they going to take some liberties? Could it deviate a little bit here and there from the animated series?
I think so. I think that for people who are expecting everything to line up perfectly across the board with the animated Rebels, they might take some liberties just to be able to tell a cleaner, more concise story via live action. That could happen. So brace yourselves for the complaints from Star Wars Rebels fans that that's not how it's supposed to be.
Filoni betrayed us.
Oh, yeah. What did he forget? People think that like he just forgot, I'm going to jump over to Natasha Liu Bordizzo. And she's playing Sabine. And I want to jump to that clip because she sort of gives us an idea about where Sabine's head is at the beginning of the story.
She's been through a lot, and she's still a stubborn cookie. But I think that you find her, at the end of Rebels, she was a huge part of the liberation of Lothal. And many regard her as this hero, but she so does not feel that way about herself. She's only thinking about the obligation she has towards her friend. So she's got that mission in mind, not her hero status. And she's got a huge journey to go on with Ahsoka. So we find her at the start of that.
So obviously some time passes from the commitment that she makes to finding Ezra. And then she finally, I wonder if she's got to track down Ahsoka first to help her in some way. We've talked about maybe Grogu, perhaps, being a piece of this puzzle. In
there
finding,
was foreshadowing.
Yes, there was with his fascination with the Purgils.
Yeah.
Boy.
And they were talking about what a navigator
he's
becoming naturally. Right. And that's what makes him an ideal Mandalorian for sure. But to go out of the way to say, wow, he really exhibits a hell of a lot of good navigation skills for an infant, who can't talk.
So are we thinking that maybe Ahsoka is going to want to borrow him? for this mission, this journey? And would
or will he just be able to provide a little information to them? Like how key a character can Grogu become in the Ahsoka series?
Right. Yeah.
It would be great because he would serve a very solid purpose if that was the case.
Right. But
He'd
then
serve a very solid purpose.
Yeah. And with him in this journey to become a Mandalorian, to become a warrior, I wouldn't put it past Din to push him out there on his own to go with somebody like an Ahsoka. If he's going to trust anybody, I think he would trust someone like Ahsoka.
It could be his first Mando mission on his own. Wow. And the screen grab you have in front of us right now, Jason, it looks very similar to one of the final shots of Star Wars Rebels in that last episode when they had that epilogue.
Yeah.
And Ahsoka with the cloak, and she had a staff with a circle on top. And she was there with Sabine, and they were ready to take off and go search for Ezra. This looks like a live-action recreation of that moment because you have the short hair Sabine. Her gear looks very Star Wars Rebels-like. It is a little muted in tone, Right. We talked about that. But it's still, like, to me, looks like a very accurate representation of the final, one of those final shots. If not, I can't remember if it was the final shot where with Ahsoka and Sabine on a landing platform on Lothal. I'm not sure if that was the absolute final shot because, you see Hera flying around with a little green kid and stuff. They're throwing a lot at us at that moment. Right. But this is the moment that really lays the groundwork
Was the final
for where the story is
final
going.
shot the shot of Vader picking up Ahsoka's lightsaber?
No, that was Clone Wars season 7
That was
final shot.
Okay.
Yeah.
That final shot. Okay.
Like I said, they're throwing a lot at us.
Yeah.
But so this is pretty exciting. I mean, regardless of whether that was the final shot or not, this is the moment in Star Wars Rebels with Ahsoka and Sabine, clearly post Return of the Jedi, as presented in Rebels, because Lothal is completely rebuilt.
Right.
Ezra's Tower now is where they hang, and so they probably fix that up. That's probably a cool place. They probably podcast from there, And
like the Avengers
and the Imperial
Tower.
oppression is gone. So now it's time. The galaxy's been cleaned up. No time to celebrate for Sabine, according to Natasha Liu Bordizzo. There's no time for her to celebrate the end of the Empire because she has to keep her commitment to Ezra. Yeah. So that's where the series picks up. It seems like, wow, the foundation has been laid.
Yeah.
And we're ready to build a flipping mansion on it. Let's go for broke, Let's build like we have all the money in the world to build a palace for Star Wars. That's what Ahsoka is going to be. Am I setting my expectations too high?
They seem high. I don't know about too high. They seem high. But we should go in. Why shouldn't we go into these things?
I always do.
With high expectations. And I know a lot of times we set ourselves up for disappointment, failure, but who wants to go into it? And Jim, this term that we coined last week started to catch on. I noticed on our official Facebook group, other people using it. Anticipating. Why should we anticipate this series? I'd much rather go in excited, thinking that the sky's the limit, and that anything is possible and anything can and will happen in this show. And I think like any of the previous Star Wars shows, there's going to be moments that blow us away, moments that we've been waiting for years, if not decades. And then there's going to be stuff that, we don't like so much. But that's just part of it. It's not going to ruin the whole meal for me.
There's going to be stuff in there that looks like a guy who sat at the feet of the originator of Star Wars, George Lucas, a guy who worked with him closely and it was mentored by Lucas. Or it could look like a guy who is a really hardcore Pittsburgh Penguins fan. So we have these two ends of the spectrum here. I don't mean to insult Pens fans. I got no hang up with the Pens. But it was just a good joke. I could have said the Steelers. I could have said the Pirates. I don't think Dave's a big Pirates fan.
I don't remember him really mentioning that. It was always
I think he's
always
strictly
the Penguins
NFL, NHL.
Yeah. And the Steelers.
Oh, yeah, he loves the Steelers. So, expecting, that pedigree, the Dave Filoni pedigree, to really shine in the Ahsoka series.
All right, what else we got here? We got we got Hera. We got
Hera.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Hera is going to be on the show. Everyone loves Hera. She's the tough as nails mother hen of Star Wars.
Yeah. And where's goggles,
Mary Elizabeth Winstead. She talked to Entertainment Weekly about Hera, what her perspective is for Hera, and where Hera's at the beginning of the Ahsoka series.
I see Hera as an incredibly strong but complicated person. I mean, she is very maternal, but also she's this leader of this crew. And as we see her, that she continues on and becomes a general, and so she's leading quite a lot of people, and she's become something of a legend in her own right. But she's also very soft and warm, and people come to her for advice and solace and comfort. And I think seeing those things combined is very unusual, and something that I really wanted to play on screen, because that's such a aspirational thing, I think, as a woman or as just a person, to be able to be all of those things in one. And she's certainly not perfect, but she does have all of those qualities that make her somebody that you can really kind of look up to.
Mm. Is she and Ewan married, or are they just...
Yeah.
They're married.
Well...
Or they're just coupled?
I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know.
In Hollywood, you don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, she is Ewan McGregor's significant other for sure.
So what a great way to prepare, for this adventure by being coupled with Ewan McGregor. He knows better than most what she's in store for, and knows how to navigate this world, and not just in the Star Wars features, but the series and all of that. So I'm sure there's some good pillow talk going on there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. At the McGregor Winstead house, it's his and her Star Wars.
Right.
I dig that. Have there ever been any other couples to be featured in Star Wars?
Legitimate couples or hookups? Because if it's hookups, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot.
Well, okay. Yeah, legitimate couples, partnerships,
couples.
Marriages. Yes.
Ooh,
I mean, can you think of any? Because I sure can't, not off the top of my head. I mean, the closest we get to a true family is, once again, Ewan McGregor and his uncle Dennis Lawson.
Yeah.
So I guess, if you're connected to it's like that game they used to play, the 6
degrees of Kevin Bacon.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Now it's gonna be 6 degrees of Ewan McGregor throughout Star Wars. Yeah, that'd be interesting. But so she seems cool. And she seems like she'll be a great Hera, definitely. And I like what she says about Hera, being able to be nurturing while still a leader with a lot of clout. That's hard, It's hard to have that sort of power and still be someone who can be, as I said, the mother hen of the rebellion.
Yeah, you look at somebody like Mon Mothma.
Mon Mothma is another good example,
but I wouldn't call her nurturing. Mon Mothma struggles clearly with her relationship with her daughter, her role as a wife. Yeah, her husband's kind of a douchey guy, but still. But I like that what she's saying is, the sort of the total package, being the strong leader, but also being the nurturer and the ability to be there in that way for her team. It's very important. Very important.
Hera keeps it real.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's boots on the ground. She's not going to ask you to do something she wouldn't do herself. Mon Mothma is very different. She's more boots off the ground and distant, and she has her underlings take care of everything for her. So it's a much different thing. But I love this shot you put up here of Hera clearly addressing rebels in a war room somewhere, and you have a guy who's wearing a similar uniform to that of a General Madine or one of them from Return of the Jedi, and then you have a B-wing pilot Mon Cal standing there next to him. On the other side of Hera, I should say. And that to me looks like classic Star Wars, you know?
Yes.
The war room scene. And they have a table with holographic projections on it and everything. That's
this
classic
is just
Star Wars.
Filoni-verse meets George's universe right here in one photo.
Yes. Well, I mean, the greatest product of the Filoni-verse meeting George's universe was Ahsoka Tano, as played by Ashley Eckstein, and we love Ashley here. I mean, she's our family, and who doesn't know of Ashley Eckstein and not just absolutely adore her? Rosario Dawson, no different than us as fans. She found a lot of inspiration being provided by Ashley Eckstein and her take on Ahsoka, and Rosario talks about it here.
The heart and the energy and the passion and the love that Ashley has brought to this character. Like any single time there's, Tano Tuesday or any of these different things, like she just goes off, and she's just got this history and this connection with the fans for so long. So it was just absolutely remarkable to have her on set. Like we were beside ourselves, and she came in, and you could just see it in her eyes. It's very similar to the look in Dave's eyes. These are people who've been working in dark rooms with microphones and and these animated characters for so long, and to see it now three-dimensionally is pretty wild. And, to have her energy there and her blessing on this show, I think, is everything, because she's so much a part of this show. I mean, we literally religiously watch these episodes over and over again as homework, which is like the easiest and the best homework in the world.
The best homework ever.
But it is like having memories, you know what I mean? And the inflection of the voice and the heart and the love and... just the commitment over so many years. I mean, she's a true believer.
Well, I love what she says there, that the homework, as she calls it, of watching the old series creates memories for the characters. That's a really cool way to put it. I do love also that she is tipping the leku to Ashley Eckstein, which she should. If I was Ashley Eckstein, I'd have a T-shirt that says, I was Ahsoka before Ahsoka was cool.
We could do shirts that said we liked Ahsoka before Ahsoka was cool.
So
we were on an island back in those early days.
Oh, were we ever? And damn right, not only am I glad that Rosario's doing this, but she should do this, because Ashley carried the water for that character, and Dave Filoni and George Lucas's vision of there being a Padawan for Anakin through it all, through the R2s and the Sky Guys. They even ended up making Sky Guy cool when she called Hayden Christensen Sky Guy on stage. Yeah, she really persevered and made that character great. Obviously, with fantastic writing by Dave Filoni, no question about it. But I think it also, Jim, was, even if you didn't like Ahsoka in the beginning, and then you went to a convention and you saw Ashley on stage talking about the character, you fell in love with Ashley.
Oh, yeah.
And by extension, you couldn't dislike Ahsoka. But at the very least, it opened you up to a character that you might have been somewhat closed-minded by, because you like the actress so much. So we can't say it enough how much that character is indebted to Ashley Eckstein.
Right. And I can't wait to see what character Ashley is playing in season 1 of Ahsoka. Because she is going to appear on camera. She will be playing something. Maybe she'll be unrecognizable, or maybe it'll be just pure Ash. But
pure Ash.
Ashley wasn't there just to visit.
No.
I'm not providing any sort of insight or any sort of sources tell me or insider information or anything. I'm just, I'm putting two together. I'm using logic, and I'm reading between the lines, and they're so open about talking about Ashley being there on the set and everything. And Ashley's a good soldier, and she told us flat out, I am definitely not going to be on camera. And then next time we talk to Ashley, this will be after the series, and she'll be apologizing to us and telling us how it just pained her to tell us a fib, but she had to, and we have to understand that. And that was the game plan from Lucasfilm. And so, we know how this is going to work. But I'd like to see Ashley on camera in the Star Wars world, and I want her to be recognizable. I want to see Ashley. I don't want her to be Horatio Sands with the blue makeup, the Blue Man Group.
Right.
I want to see Ashley. Now, I might be disappointed there, but I really strongly believe we will be seeing her make a cameo on the Ahsoka series. So, and maybe it's a character that will stick. Maybe it's a character that can provide reoccurring appearances for Ash, and she can show up on not only Ahsoka, but maybe future Star Wars shows or films.
I would love to see her be someone really important in Ahsoka's history or life. Could be a relative or something if they had her done up like one of her species. Something. I think it needs to be significant because she is the foundation of the character in so many ways. So it'd be appropriate for her to play that type of character, even if it's just a quick cameo.
How many times have we seen something along those lines happen in films where the one character is sort of passing the torch to the other, and that character is from a previous incarnation, a previous vision, a previous film, series, what have you? I mean, I think they did it in the Dukes of Hazzard movie when they slotted in little cameos from
John Schneider and
actors. Yeah, I think
Patrick Duffy.
Did that.
Is that it yet?
They may have
wasn't
done
Patrick
that
Duffy. Oh God, who was Luke Duke? Wasn't Patrick Duffy?
Sweet God, your brain farts take us down these
I
avenues.
know. I got John Schneider right.
Yeah, and that's all you need to remember.
All right. Yeah.
But I mean, I'm just saying, there's a tradition with that. Even in they did a terrible job of it with the Ghostbusters, though, when they had Murray Ackroyd show up as characters that were not Venkman and whatever the other one's name is.
Well, that was in the girl Ghostbusters. They brought them back appropriately in Afterlife.
They sure did.
The one that
was beautiful. Yeah, I love that.
Great scene. The one that I always remember is when they brought Chuck Heston back for that Tim Burton Planet of the Apes film, and they had Charlton Heston.
What character did he play?
He played an old ape that was dying.
See,
and they had him.
That's more the tradition,
remember?
Right. That's the tradition of what I'm thinking about here with Ashley showing up on the Ahsoka set. Now, I'm not saying Ashley's going to be an ape, but that's the tribute to Ashley and her dedication. Rosario Dawson said it in the clip. Ashley is a true believer. And I could tell you, and I believe it 1,000 times over with all of my heart, that Ashley is not putting on any sort of act, that she really feels this spirit of Ahsoka lives in her, and she feels it's very important to share it with people and keep that spirit alive. And that's the type of ownership she's taken of the character. And she certainly has given her blessings to Rosario. And it's going to be interesting, though, because I think she's definitely going to be showing up on that series, though. Let's stop kidding around here.
All right, well, August of 2023 will be the start of Ahsoka Season 1. August of 2024 will give us Season 2 of Andor. Jim, cameras are still rolling on Andor without Tony Gilroy, as he is in a move of solidarity, staying off the set as he supports his fellow writers with the big WGA strike.
Right. But yeah, the production is plowing ahead and there's schedules to be kept. And Gilroy wrote everything he had to write. I guess we need somebody there who's a true insider. And there's no truer insider to the Andor production than Stellan Skarsgård, Luthen Rael. He has information. He's got ears everywhere. He's got sources. He's got people planted. And so he talked to Entertainment Weekly and discussed what it's like working on Andor Season 2 without Tony Gilroy.
Wow, that's going great. We'll see now. Tony Gilroy has gone on strike as 1st of May. And he finished the script right on the day. And then he shut off the phone and disappeared and into a picket line somewhere. So we'll see. He claims that the film is director-proof and actor-proof, which means that it can't be destroyed. But we'll see if it works.
Yeah.
The script is actor-proof. It's director-proof. Man, I love that Gilroy says that, and I have a feeling that when he says it, he means it too.
Yeah.
That when he finishes a script, it's locked. It's a Tony Gilroy script. Don't mess with it. It's perfect. He'll tell you so. And it's not necessarily what I feel has likely happened on the set of other Star Wars series. I'll just put it that way. I just don't know if the written page is as sacrosanct when it's not a Tony Gilroy joint, if you know what I mean.
Right.
They could be playing loose, I think, sometimes.
Well, I think that has a lot to do with Tony Gilroy himself, that people just have the confidence.
Right.
They know what they're getting from him is gold, and they're going to make it work. So Tony's there. It was kind of funny where he's like, yeah, Gilroy's on strike. I mean, that just, to me, it sounded kind of funny. And,
he finished the script and then he ran off in a picket line somewhere.
Turned off his phone. He's gone. Don't even bother trying. Now, come on. But so there's a little Andor update. Yeah, I think maybe fall 2024.
I think they've already said August of 2024.
Have they said August?
I thought
they've already pegged it for August. That's very uncommon for Disney Lucasfilm to commit like that, but it's going to be 12 episodes again, too.
I swear I didn't make that up. I swear that month, August.
Well, it debuted in October last year, so that's why I'm thinking more of an autumn sort of thing, but we'll see. I personally don't think that they have actually established a legitimate premiere date for, because, Swank, it's very fluid, this situation. Very fluid.
Oh, yeah.
Iger's in there. And he's got the hatchet. And he's ready to chop down trees if necessary. Certainly he's going to take off some branches. So you never know when that axe is going to fall. I remember from Andor, though, that the axe forgets and the tree remembers. Remember that?
I do. Just one of the many great lines. Many
that was a great line.
Lines.
A great Tony Gilroy line.
So many of them.
They built a lot of cages, huh? The axe forgets, but the tree remembers.
Hey, this is Dave Filoni, and you are listening to Rebel Force Radio with Jason and Jimmy.
One of the greatest things about Ashley, she embodies it. On screen, off screen, when you meet her, have you ever met her and found her in a bad mood? Never. She always has a smile for everybody. Yeah. She is tough, and I'll say it again, of all decisions I made, she was the best. So proud of her. So proud.
Hey there, this is Ashley Eckstein, voice of Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you're listening to Rebel Force Radio.
All right, let's switch over to Mandalorian, and with it, Pedro Pascal. Pedro Pascal was being interviewed on the Variety YouTube channel, and it's just sort of it was a great interview, almost an hour, just talking about all of his projects, Mandalorian being just one of them. And so there was conversation about the question I think everybody's asking, which is the helmet. What kind of a role is this for you these days? What are you really doing on the set of Andor? And in this clip, he describes kind of how he reconciles the fact that it's pretty much just his voice and how it sort of reflects the way the show was originally pitched to him at the beginning.
Cool. Mandalorian and all of its like visual identity. At that point, there was so much experience for everyone involved in terms of authoring this character that that it was able to become mostly a voiceover gig for season 3.
Yeah.
Confirmed.
So, yeah, a voiceover gig for season 3. And like I say, he reconciles it by saying that so much of the pitch, so much of what has gone into this character is the visual.
Yeah.
And that's the way that it was presented to him in the beginning. Now, he doesn't go so far as to say that it was pitched to him as a voiceover gig in the beginning, but that it's in keeping with the priorities. And you'll hear there's a theme that it's just not a priority. It's not necessarily efficient for him to always be there on set.
Well, see, that's interesting. And I'm glad that there's a little bit of transparency about all of this now, because it's been a voiceover gig since season 1, largely. However, Pedro probably did have a larger presence on set at least, and attempted to act with all that gear on in the helmet. But according to rumors that started to show up even before we got to the midway season of season 1 of The Mandalorian, there was talk about how Pedro was going to leave the show. He didn't like wearing the helmet. He wanted the character to be helmetless, and the creators wouldn't budge on that. And there was even a rumor around that he was going to be replaced midway through season 1. I remember all of this. I keep a checklist. And it's a mental checklist, but it's a checklist.
It's there.
And
it's there. Yeah, and Jim, there was also that whole brouhaha about awards consideration. That was also in some ways presented as if this was a real problem that he, the actor, had with being unable to show his face, that it took him out of contention for these things. And Disney lobbied, and I think they ended up giving him some time without the helmet, so that enough time, sufficient time, so that he could be nominated for an Emmy. But here's the weird thing. When you talk about I'm going to jump to the last clip because of what you said about his evolution on camera, or de-evolution on camera. Here's him talking exactly about that and how that has changed since the beginning.
It's been such an interesting experiment throughout, in that there was limited time for me on set in the first season, and kind of a collaborative process of creating and establishing a physical presence that was like based on what they needed for the character, what the costume, what the silhouette is, what Brendan Wayne can do, what Lateef Crowder can do, and what was important to John and Dave and me as far as a physical language was concerned. And then stepping into it for the majority of season 2, because I wanted to, and I wanted to sort of see how far little could go.
So, according to Pedro Pascal, he was in the suit for most of season 2.
Well, what does he mean, though, how far little can go?
I think what he's talking about is how far little can go, in the sense that how far little showing his face can go.
I see.
and just
that
being
whole mask acting
the mask,
thing.
right. So
Okay.
that's the first time we've heard anybody go on record about how much he was in the suit, and this is the guy. But I remember the same rumors and the same back channel talk as you, so I don't know. I will tell you, I know a guy. I can recognize when a guy is choosing his words very carefully. And Pedro Pascal in this interview, and you don't see it. If you listen to the whole interview, and he's talking about what's the Last of Us or whatever it is, he's talking about that. He's talking about some of the movie projects. He's not quite as precise in his language as he is he's talking about Mandalorian.
It just flows out of him.
Yeah.
But like Last of Us, he's like, well, I'll tell you what, being on the set with these wonderful actors every day and being able to act this dialogue, it makes me a better actor. It really does. Well, what about The Mandalorian? When we were on the set of The Mandalorian, Latif, whatever, I just like saying Latif.
Great name.
Well, he's a great guy. The stuff he does with the Mandalorian helmet and gear on is mind-blowing. And we say at home on our sofas, taking it for granted. Some of the martial artistry and brilliance of movement and choreography, fight choreography, all that with the helmets on and stuff.
Yeah.
You 501st guys, you know what I'm talking about. It's hard. You can't move around with that stuff on, much less pull off the athletic and sometimes dangerous maneuvers that these guys are doing with all this plastic
now, I don't have
fiberglass all over.
I don't have the extended clip, but he does go on very briefly to talk about, and he just says how difficult it was to be in the suit and do that stuff.
It was a struggle for Pedro. We've been hearing that even through our wacky avenues. We were hearing things about Pedro's struggles, and we talked to you guys about that. We told you what we were seeing, and I think it's kind of fun now to look at season 2 of The Mandalorian. Now, really, let's try to find Pedro in some scenes, and I'll tell you, the scenes will be largely the Mandalorian sitting at the cockpit, the Mandalorian sitting in a speeder, sitting at a table, maybe walking across a room. Or standing outside talking to Pelimoto. You'll be like, oh, that's Pedro right there. But then Pedro starts moving and say, hey, that's Latif. So, let's see if we can do it. This is a fun at-home game we all can play.
Right, Spot the Pedro. It's kind of like, where's Waldo? Where's Pedro?
Where's Pedro?
He also says, and I don't have this clip either, but he does talk about how he's able to, when he's in the suit, he's got the microphone hookup. So he's mic'd and he's delivering the lines on set. But oftentimes he really tweaks the read when he goes in and does the ADR. And he loves being able to evolve the scene, sometimes break it down with John or Dave, and then offer. He keeps talking about how surgical it is, So, but he
at the very least he's offering a scratch track to use on set.
Right, exactly. Is Latif and is Brendan Wayne laying down a scratch track? I'm guessing.
Now, true. I mean, those guys are actors in their own right, and they deserve to get top billing in the show like they did this past season.
Yes. He does mention that briefly. In fact, the guy interviewing him says, wasn't that great? And Pedro agreed that was long overdue to get them in the credits. Got a couple more clips here. This one is about when should the helmet come off dramatically as far as part of the storytelling. When do you take the helmet off?
In season 2, where he takes his helmet off in the beginning of the episode and is in a different kind of a costume. And we had a conversation, and and I was like, I think we should hold it. And they're like, are you crazy? And I was like, no, I really think that it should come when the stakes feel the highest,
Yeah, and that's when we've seen him take his helmet off, has been exactly then, when the stakes are highest. And sometimes, like in the case of giving up Grogu to Luke Skywalker, it was the emotional stakes were so high when he has to take his helmet off, when he and Bill Burr are sneaking into that Imperial base, the mission, it's the tension that's created in that episode, stakes again very, very high. I'm trying to think of the other one. Really, the other one was
IG-11 had to apply bacta spray to him in season 1
Save
after
his
he got
life.
fried by the incinerator trooper.
That's right.
There
To
on
save his
Navarro.
life.
Yeah. So he was able to remove his helmet for the droid because of the technicality. Nobody's going to see you. I'm a nobody. I'm a droid.
Right.
Pedro's like, good enough. Couldn't take the helmet off fast enough. I think next time he takes a helmet off, you should have a sound effect like a,
Well,
I'll leave that up to Skywalker Sound and Matt Wood and those guys.
It always has that Star Wars hiss when it comes off. That started
in Fanboys.
Vader.
In Fanboys, I think it was when Windows, maybe it was also everyone else, but they take their Stormtrooper helmet off and they all go when they take Yeah, I think Dan Fogler does it. That's got Newman written all over it.
Yeah, I think we never see, when Luke, here's a question. When Luke takes his Stormtrooper helmet off in the cell block, to reveal himself to Leia, I don't think there's a psh sound. We get a psh sound, I believe, in Return of the Jedi. The first time when Boushh takes her helmet off, reveals that it's Leia, we get a psh.
Okay.
And in Empire, when the dome goes on, I believe there's some sort of an airlock kind of sound.
It's like a
tighten
it up. Seal it up like a Ziploc bag.
Cauliflower. All right, one more clip here, and this is Pedro talking about Bo-Katan and her role in The Mandalorian and the expansion that she got in season 3.
The possibility of casting the voice actor of Bo-Katan in the live-action role. And I was like, Katie Sackhoff, you have to do it. And so, anyway, I just think it was perfect that we get to meet and see the character, and she gets to do cool shit in the second season, and then take center stage in the third. And it's what I would want for the character and as a fan of the Clone Wars.
So there you go. So for Pedro, it makes total sense for her to come in season 2, do some cool SHIT, and then take her place as a lead or central character, a central character. He doesn't say the central character, or he says, and a lot of people are sort of pitting the two against each other, like, it's really now Bo-Katan is the Mandalorian. I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
We've been spending 3 seasons following this guy around with a little frog. We know who the show is about.
Right.
Now, come on.
But
come on.
He reveals that he is a fan of the Clone Wars, but he's even a bigger fan of Battlestar Galactica, the version that starred Katie Sackhoff, and he was really excited to be working with her. He admitted to owning the whole series on DVD, and he started kind of geeking out a little bit during the interview about Battlestar, but
true. But I don't hear him like heaping praise on the animated series like we heard Rosario Dawson doing early in the show, and you hear Natasha Liu Bordizzo in the background very much agreeing with Rosario. He's like, this is the best homework we ever had to do. I don't think Pedro, they really sit him down and say, all right, well, we have to watch the Star Wars Rebels when the Imperial Commandos raided Bo-Katan's families. It's like, what? Can't somebody just tell me what happened?
Yeah, he's going on YouTube. He's checking out those like episode summaries. And then he gets to RFR and he's like, God, these are long. What, I got to listen to an hour and a half of people talking?
Stumbles across our after show.
Right.
It's like, you really expect me to watch this? God. All right. Well, there's Pedro
already. Yeah, Pedro. So good for him.
Awesome.
And so there's your Star Wars updates for you. Now let's get into Star Wars and pop culture.
Rebel Force Radio.
You've already made that Star Wars reference.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars parody.
All right, Star Wars and pop culture. We got several here to catch you up on. Starting with the first one that Jim mentioned a little bit earlier, and this is way out of my league. We're talking about the NBA and a guy on a sports talk show and talks about Star Wars, I guess.
Well, so like I said earlier, this number one draft pick taken by San Antonio, Victor Wembanyama, he is like the guy. They say that he's going to be the next superstar player, big superstar player in the NBA, the type of guy you want to build your franchise around. And so there's this podcast. It's called The Old Man and the Three, and it's hosted by JJ Redick, who's an ESPN guy, and our listener Brian Fletcher listens to the show, and he tipped us off to this great pop culture moment happening, and it's like so timely too, because obviously, the NBA draft was this week, and Victor was the number one pick, and San Antonio is going nuts over it. So he sits down to really talk about his journey to becoming the number one draft pick, and he's with the Old Man in the Three podcast. And these guys do a great job of interviewing him, and they leave no stone unturned. As you will hear in this clip, Victor is a Star Wars fan with standards.
Would you say you have a favorite movie or show?
Yeah. Star Wars is my thing for sure. I know everything about
Do you have
Star
a ranking? Because this is going to be... people are.
Sorry?
There's a lot of Star Wars fans. Do you have a top three?
Movies?
Of Star Wars, yeah.
Yeah. First of all, when I say Star Wars, I don't count the three last. Yeah.
The three last what?
Movies. I'd say as a 2000s kids, I'm more of a prequel fan, even though I love the original trilogy. But my favorite is Revenge of the Sith, and my second favorite's got to be Attack of the Clones, and I'd say The Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, this is my top three.
I would have I would have just kept going. What's wrong with these guys? They wrap up the interview there. I'd have been like, wait a minute. All right, let's break this down. All right, we got a prequel. The interview's just getting started as far as I'm concerned. We need to get Vic on. RFR.
He's from France, so he may have seen the films presented with the French overdubs.
But Jimmy Mack, by the way, is an expert in all the various foreign language versions of the Star Wars films.
Yeah, I've dabbled with the French one, but I don't think I've fully committed to a film watching it in French.
Yeah, it's a tough language. It's a tough language.
But Victor sounds like he speaks English pretty well, and I'm kind of hoping he's an RFR listener. And so, hey, Victor, those guys cut you off there at the end of the interview just when it was getting interesting. If you need to talk more about your top three with us, we'll throw the Yoda questionnaire at you and everything. Just hit us up, show at rebelforceradio.com.
And I promise to not ask you a single basketball question. I won't. We'll wrap it up like they did with the Star Wars question. We'll wrap it up with one basketball question and be like, well, Vic, we really wish you all the best.
Perfect. That's perfect. So Victor, he's going to have a great career in the NBA. And Victor Wembanyama.
Who's he going to be playing for?
San Antonio Spurs.
Oh, the Spurs.
They had the number one pick of the draft, and so this week they took him at number one.
Good for them.
And he's going to be big for them. And I think in a very short amount of time, we're not going to struggle saying his last name anymore. I think it's going to roll off everyone's tongue. Wembanyama, number one pick.
Wembanyama.
Yeah, baby. So thank you very much for sending us that awesome Star Wars and pop culture reference. That's our friend Brian Fletcher. We also heard from Paul Trapp in Utah, who's watching HBO Succession. That seems to be kind of a hot streaming show now on HBO.
Everybody is talking about this show.
Everyone's talking.
You watching it in your house? Wendy watching it?
Wendy, of course. Wendy, to prepare for the final season, she did the thing where she watches every episode in like a week and a half.
She has. See, we just cover Star Wars. Wendy being on the radio, she's got to watch all these shows. As soon as they become hot, she's got to jump on it and jump in.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And she loves it. She loves it. TV is her thing more than films. Hey, speaking of which, did you go see The Flash? You're a big Batman fan?
I'm a big Batman fan. I'm a big Keaton fan. I was waiting to get a couple of reviews from people that I know and trust. Here's why. I didn't want to go and sit through a 2-hour, 20-minute superhero movie about a character I'm not all that crazy about if Keaton's only in it for like 5 minutes. But some people that I trust.
No spoilers. I don't know anything about this movie, and I wanted to see it.
All I'm going to say is if you're a Keaton fan, what people are telling me, it's worth your time. So go see it.
Oh, good.
Go see it.
So it's worth the hype as far as that goes.
As far as that goes. And that really, because of the problems they've been having behind the scenes with Ezra Miller, that really has become what they've hung their hat on with that film is the Keaton return as Batman.
But the Ezra Miller thing, it damaged their abilities to properly promote this thing. There is superhero fatigue. There's also the fact that the DC universe is just about ready to get rebooted. So I think a lot of fans don't want to keep committing to these DC films that are coming out that really aren't going to matter too much at the end of the day as far as the mythology goes.
Right.
So it appears that the Flash film, judging from some of the analysis I've been seeing, is a massive flop. Like a Black Adam sized massive flop for DC. And I think that's unfortunate because I was looking forward to seeing Tim Burton as well. And I thought Keaton. The Michael Keaton, the Tim Burton version of Batman.
Right.
As embodied by Michael.
I stopped him, folks, because if I don't, then he gets mad at me and says, why didn't you stop me? So that's why
I listen back to the show, and I'm like, why do you keep calling Michael Keaton Tim Burton? But that's what I mean. See, when you stop me, then you give me a chance to kind of like explain where my brain cells are firing or misfiring, as the case may be.
Batman, Michael Keaton, the next thing you're going to say is Tim Burton. It's just, that's the way it goes.
Yeah, bing, bang, boom.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gonna be a flop. But I wanted to see it, but my comic store loving son, he said, "No, he goes, Dad, this is a wait for video."
Oh,
I said, I didn't know that. I thought this was a big thing, but for the reasons I just spelled out, and the box office is definitely reflecting that as well. So. That's what's going on in the theaters, but HBO Succession is the thing that a lot of people are talking about. And I have a hard time watching it because I find the characters to be largely unlikable, and I have to like the characters.
I think that's the whole point of the show, right? Just a bunch of nasty,
right, the worst of the worst
people, like Billions. That show.
So HBO Succession Season 4, Episode 9, there is a Star Wars reference.
Oh, my God.
Just to set it up, there's this businessman, an heir to the family throne named Kendall Roy, and he approaches Hugo, who is his, underling, and they're at his father's funeral, and the Star Wars reference drops. So here it is, courtesy of Paul Trapp from Utah.
Come here. Listen. I got something for you. I want you to brief media on background.
Then I am the droid you are looking for.
Okay.
That was quick.
That's a quickie. But if you know, you know. It's one of those things. If you know, you know. I am the droid you're looking for. Who drops a Star Wars reference like that at the dude's dad's funeral?
Oh, my God.
But like I said, this is a show about really douchebag people. So that's that. A show that everyone loved and a guy everyone loved was Bob
No
Newhart.
douchebag here.
No, not at all. Newhart. Newhart was Bob Newhart's second series after the Bob Newhart show aired in the 70s. This one popped up in the 80s. Newhart. It was a big hit. And everyone loves Bob Newhart.
This is the one where he ran the inn, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
He had the inn with Larry, Daryl, and Daryl.
Yeah, and the guy from Bosom Buddies who isn't Tom Hanks.
Peter Scolari.
Peter Scolari, exactly. The late Peter Scolari, I think. He passed away.
He passed away this year or last year.
Yeah, unfortunately, because he's a likable guy. Now, he's a likable guy. If he was on Succession, I'd watch the show. But Alexander watches reruns of Newhart. He loves it. And so he's taking us back to January 20th, 1986 for season
Wow, he's got the original
4.
air date that he throws down. I like that.
That's how we do it. That's how we do it here on Star Wars and Pop Culture. Alexander knows. As a matter of fact, Alexander is one of our most loyal contributors to RFR and Pop Culture. And he brings us Newhart, Star Wars reference. Alexander says Newhart has always been a favorite show of his, and it hasn't been available streaming anywhere until recently on Amazon Prime. So Newhart fans rejoice. I'm in it for Peter Scolari, though. All right, so here we are, Newhart, Star Wars reference. Let's see what it is.
Oh, that room's a mess. Harley, I have some mops and pails in the basement. Come on. Right behind you, boss. I've been better. Careful. I got put your arm around my shoulder. Okay. I felt a disturbance in the force.
Dick just fell down the stairs.
Well, hey, it's 1986, okay? That's that's like more than we can ask for 1986.
Right.
A disturbance in the force.
Wow.
That's strong. Because in 1986, nothing was going on with Star Wars. Nobody was talking about Star Wars. Nobody was
Ancient
referencing
history.
Star Wars. This is before The Simpsons. This is before Kevin Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I mean, The Simpsons really brought Star Wars references kind of back into the forefront. But they didn't air their first episode till 1989. This is Newhart from January 20th, 1986.
Boy, if I would have seen this as a 9-year-old kid, I'd have been so excited. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? They said the Force.
This Bob Newhart guy is cool. All right, I got one more for you. And this is one we've been sitting on forever. We keep bouncing it week after week, but it's Kerry Russell, who starred as Zori Bliss on The Rise of Skywalker, right?
Sure did.
Zori Bliss.
Mm-hmm.
If ever there was a Star Wars stripper in the galaxy, her name was Zori Bliss.
Well, that's the kind of woman that Poe Dameron would have been hanging with, I think.
I guess.
He's a strip club kind of guy. I can tell.
Poe.
Poe.
It's ladies' night at Eric the Red's. All right. So, Kerry Russell appeared on Kimmel Live. This is a few months ago, obviously, because no new shows are being aired because of the writer's strike. But this was a few months ago. Kerry was on to promote Cocaine Bear, which she stars in, right? And
did you see that? Did you see that thing?
No, I wanted to see it was in the theaters, but again, nobody would go with me, so I blew it off. I thought it would be fun, you know?
Yeah.
Have a couple pops and go see Cocaine Bear, but nobody went. I'll stream it sooner or later. Some boring, lonely night by myself. But she shared this story with Jimmy Kimmel about taking her fellow mom friends from the neighborhood to the Rise of Skywalker premiere. And it's a funny story because the mom friends start getting comfortable with a very powerful executive at Disney. Let's hear how this goes down.
One of the big premieres was in London because they shoot, Pinewood there. And one of my Mom's Gone Wild pals, Andrea, was like she's a coder, so she's like a big, Star Wars fan from a young age. And I was like, you've got to come to the premiere. So they flew.
You brought a wild mom to the premiere?
I brought a couple. I brought two. My Mom's Gone Wild. And at one point at this fancy premiere, Bob Iger, who's this handsome, very amazing head of Disney.
Yeah, he runs
powerful guy.
Yeah.
I look over and one of my moms gone wild, or I think both of them are talking to Bob Iger at the bar, and I was like, ooh. Rein it in, ladies, rein it in. They were great. They were
No
great.
trouble?
No trouble
No?
that I know of. Yeah.
They, other than Bob, they behaved themselves?
They behaved themselves.
All right.
Bob seemed
Wow.
pleased. Yeah.
Wow, I got to get in this Mom's
Yeah.
Gone Wild group.
It's a good
Sounds like
group.
there's a lot of fringe benefits.
It's a good group. Good group.
He was probably focus grouping them, finding out what they thought of the movie and, asking it, do you think we released it too soon after Solo? What do you think?
Hey, listen, I don't know anything about Carrie Russell or her neighborhood, but her pals are called Moms Gone Wild. Something tells me there's a lot of alcohol consumption going on with these ladies wherever they go. And it's funny, she sees them over there. She's at one side of the room, and then she sees the Moms Gone Wild with, like, the most powerful man in Hollywood. And she knows the Moms Gone Wild have had several servings. And she's like, oh!
Yeah, that could go really
oh, my God,
bad.
I see she's standing there watching her career flash in front of her
You
eyes.
need to give her, that's our friend. You need to give her one of those Star Wars TV shows. She has been working in this business for...
Oh, Iger's eating that up, though.
Of course.
Now, ladies, ever been on a yacht before? Iger's eating that up.
Now, you've had
Takes
your
two to
own
tango.
run-in with Mom's Gone Wild in Star Wars, haven't you? I recall your mom and some of her friends going to see a Star Wars film once upon a time.
Mom's Gone Wild, indeed. Yeah. There's 70s and 80-year-old ladies dragging oxygen tanks into the theater to see what the fuss about The Force Awakens is. Yeah, that's Mom's Gone Wild, all right. Yeah.
True story.
I don't think so.
Mac's mom brought some of her old lady friends to see Force Awakens.
Well, I was impressed by that.
Yeah.
I was impressed. I mean, I don't know if my mom was the one who initiated that hangout, but one of them they saw all the hype for The Force Awakens and they said, well, let's go. And I think my mom was like, probably feeling like she had the street cred, just because I'm her son.
Of course.
And also Billy, if you want to include him. And you can. Billy is a hardcore Star Wars fan. So my mom feels like she knows her way around the galaxy far, far away. And if a bunch of old ladies want to bust out of the nursing home and go see what the fuss is all about, God bless them. I wonder if they like cornered my mom afterwards with a bunch of questions, or if it all just went through them like a spicy tamale and they never thought about it again.
I think they had all kinds of Snoke theories. Who were Rey's parents? I'm sure. Now ask your sons if they think.
That Snoke reminds me of that man Joseph who moved in down the hall. He seems very personable. All right. So that's Carrie Russell and the Moms Gone Wild. I hope to hear more from the Moms Gone Wild, too.
I've always
like the
liked
further
Carrie
adventures of Bob Iger and the Moms Gone Wild. That could be a Disney streaming series.
Yeah. Be like instead of the Playboy Mansion, it'd be like the Snow White, or what the hell's the palace there? The castle? Snow White's castle?
Right. It's like, the Moms Gone Wild are in the grotto. Bob Iger is Hugh Hefner walking around with the smoking jacket on.
In the captain's hat. The sailor hat.
You never know what goes on behind closed doors, Swank. You never know. Yeah.
All right. We got an email that was sent through the website, courtesy of Trevor. Trevor asks, hope you're having a good start to the week. Thought this was interesting as I had not noticed it before. I'm doing the yearly rewatch of all the films, release date order. I like that way the best. And I'm on the Phantom Menace. Have you guys ever noticed that Ahmed Best is dressed as a Jedi in the fourth to the last scene? It's the one where Palps comes to Naboo and Padme congratulates him on becoming Chancellor. Right after he tells Anakin they will watch his career with great interest. You can see Ahmed walking right behind Plo Koon. See attached photo. Just thought it was cool with the whole kids game show thing, and then his character being the one to rescue Grogu. All right. So, should we show his photo? We should show his actual photo. I can do that.
We're all familiar with that scene at the end of The Phantom Menace. It's when Palpatine says to young Anakin out at the landing platform, I will watch your career with great interest.
Here's why I want to show his photo. We're showing that on the screen. So he took this picture on his TV. He's got a nice TV. You can tell because how clear everything is. He's watching this in UHD, ultra high def. You can tell. And he circled the African-American gentleman back here. And
in Jedi robes.
In Jedi robes. When I first saw this come through the show notes a couple weeks ago, when this first showed up, I went, oh my God, how did we never know this? How? I fell for it. I really did. I fell for it. And so I fired up Disney Plus, and I thought, okay, well, I got to see for myself. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And then I zoomed in and I saw, it's not Ahmed Best.
It's not Ahmed Best. And it ain't Mace Windu. Let me introduce you to Fake Mace. That's who we're dealing with here. I'd like to introduce you to Fake Mace.
Fake Mace, like Fake Wedge. We have another fake in the Star Wars galaxy.
That is not, in fact, Ahmed Best. But it's a stand-in for Samuel L. Jackson and is supposed to be, according to in-universe canon, that's supposed to be Mace Windu.
You're kidding me. That's Mace.
No. I mean, you see him with the other Jedi Council members, like Ki-Adi-Mundi and Plo Koon, and so this has been a mystery since 1999. But what we know about this particular scene, like I said, it's not Ahmed Best. I can understand why somebody nowadays would think that because it does resemble Ahmed's character, Jedi Master Kelvin Beck, who we saw in the game show Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenge and in Season 3 of The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy who escorted little Grogu to safety from the Jedi Temple in Order 66. So who is this guy then? I mean, it's not Kelvin Beck. I mean, I could see why, if in my own headcanon, I almost want to make him Kelvin Beck, but it's not, and it certainly isn't the coolest of cool. Samuel L. Jackson is Mace Windu. So who is this guy? So what I know about this shot at the end of The Phantom Menace is it was one of those situations where George was in the editing suite, and he's like, we don't really have any closure on the Palpatine Anakin thing. And it's like, well, what kind of closure do we need on it? Well, just something so we know that the Phantom Menace himself is aware of the arrival of the Chosen One. We have to have some sort of interaction between the two to set up the future films. So it was a last-minute pickup shot, and this is just prior to the parade scene. Mm-hmm. And the parade scene itself was shot at Leavesden Studios, and this addition to it was also shot there after the main shoot wrapped up. And the crowd in this shot was made up of local extras and Lucasfilm employees. Sam Jackson clearly unavailable for this shot, so George is thinking like, well, maybe use his body double. Maybe that's who this guy is. Samuel Jackson's body double for Phantom Menace. And, George thinking very ambitiously about all the new digital tools at his disposal is probably thinking, like, we'll just superimpose Sam's face onto this guy digitally. But it just never happened. They just ran out of time, or maybe George just didn't care. Or something, because you know how he would be like that. George will look at it and go, whatever.
No notice.
It's Sam Jackson. They'll think it's Mace Windu. But so...
other than this guy being about 35 years younger than Sam Jackson.
He is considerably younger from what we can see. So the only thing I can come up with
a bald black
theory
man.
Just get, is he bald? Good. Get him in there and put him in robes. Put him in Sam's wardrobe.
Right.
But so I think Sam Jackson was unavailable this late into production for the film. because this was shot as a pickup very late in production. So they either used his stand-in or an extra who they thought resembled him enough so us in the audience wouldn't notice, or again, maybe George just like could paint over his face with Sam Jackson's real face.
Oh,
but
right.
that's not
That's not what they
how
did.
Best. No, they just left it. I remember sitting in the theater going, "What's wrong with Samuel L. Jackson there?"
Now, is that the real Ki-Adi-Mundi? It looks to me like the real one.
Yeah, that looks like the real deal.
Yeah.
Silas Carson, who played Key, and that's obviously Ian McDiarmid is the Chancellor Palpatine, and Plo Koon is there somewhere and stuff. Yeah, just one of those things. Now, filmmaking has changed so much because of high definition and home theaters and stuff. I think filmmakers don't cut corners like this anymore. They don't throw things out there thinking we won't notice.
Right.
But things still do slip through the cracks, like the Starbucks cup in the Game of Thrones show that a lot of people were making a big whoop-de-doo about when that happened in those I think it was the final episode of Game of Thrones. Or the guy standing, the blue jeans guy from Mandalorian season 2. Yeah.
Yes.
It's that kind of thing. All these eyes are on top of this production looking at frame by frame, but yet still some things slip through the cracks. And Fake Mace is among them. Fake Mace, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. Give him his own spin-off.
Why not?
That's
the Adventures
what I
of
say.
Fake Mace.
Why not?
If you can't get the real Mace Windu for a live-action series, get Fake Mace.
Well, we got a little bit of time. Can we squeeze in like maybe just a random voicemail or
we
something?
got a voice. I got one queued up just in case. How about this one?
Perfect. Yeah, we got a little
Jason
time.
and Jimmy, this is Jeff from Salem, Oregon, all the way on the West Coast. Huge fan of the show. I've been listening. I'm catching up on all the old episodes. I've been super busy. Haven't been able to listen to them when they drop. But I was listening to the one from the end of May. You guys were talking about the curb appeal of Galaxy's Edge, specifically Disney really pushing these sequel trilogy characters. And for prequel fans, OT fans, the appeal is not as there with those sequel fans. So rather than looking at it from a fiscally responsible perspective, I want to look at something from more of a dreamer's perspective, if you will, and just dream what this could look like. All right, picture, I'm going to take you on a journey, all right? Picture this. You have 3 separate parks all linked together, right? You've got the sequel trilogy era, so you've got the 2, but then you have the prequel era and the OT era, and they can all intermix. So there's all these other characters like Cal Kestis. He can kind of float between the prequel park and the original trilogy park. Again, don't think of this on fiscally responsible terms. Maybe it is fiscally responsible. Who knows? But I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on what that could look like. I think it's a really cool idea, even though it would be millions upon millions upon millions, maybe billions of dollars. But the appeal is there multi-generationally. So we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Love the show. Keep on doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you very much. It is not an easy thing to combine going on 50 years worth of incredible storytelling, characters, locations, vehicles, everything, to combine it into one experience. Now, you keep saying, okay, don't think of this in terms of financials. This is pie in the sky, no limit. What would be the ideal? And yeah, I think the ideal would be a little bit of everything, honestly. But I'd still go back to say that the root of Star Wars, still to this day, not necessarily for the kids, but for the people that are going to be spending the money to bring the kids, the root of Star Wars is in that original trilogy. You cannot go wrong. Just like you can't go wrong with Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, you can't go wrong with those classic characters. And that, I believe, is where Galaxy's Edge really missed the mark. What do people talk about the most? They talk about the Millennium Falcon, because the Millennium Falcon is so iconic. Yeah, it had a role to play in the sequel trilogy. I get that. But that's not why the Millennium Falcon was there. The Millennium Falcon was there because it's like a character in and of itself. And so that seems to be the big talking point that people walk away with. Wow, that Falcon ride and seeing the Falcon there brought me to tears, or it was a really emotional experience for me. And I think they should learn from that.
Maybe too much stock and too much priority was placed in the whole lose yourself in the adventure, become part, how how absorbed can you become by this environment, and how much can you lose yourself in this environment? I think that was kind of a swing and a miss. Because like nobody walks out of the Haunted Mansion and then stumbles off into New Orleans Square and sees Pirates of the Caribbean and stuff, goes, well, I was scared, but now I'm seeing Pirates of the Caribbean. That has nothing to do with the Haunted Mansion. I'm totally out of it. It's been ruined. No. You bounce from one thing to another, and it's the variety, I think, that really makes a trip to those parks exciting, because you can go from one world to another. And then if you make Galaxy's Edge, they just kind of sanitized it and made it sort of like a generic Star Wars experience, as opposed to a thing where you can actually enter into the films that you know and love so well. You're only in like Star Wars land. When you see the Falcon, then the impact becomes real.
Right.
Because that's the thing. That's the Falcon, man. It's right in front of me. I could see it. I could walk up to it. I can look at it from all angles. I know this ship.
I would say the Cantina is a close second to the Falcon.
Yeah, because you always want to go to the Cantina, right?
Right.
The only thing the Cantina's missing are like the monsters. They should have some like aliens in there busting balls or something, because that's what you always see in the Cantina. What's a Cantina without the Walrus Mans and the Hammerheads and the Greedos? You need that, but they would be taking up valuable real estate where you and me could be sitting our butts there having a drink. So,
right.
Yeah, get the hell out of here, Greedo. I'm thirsty.
But I don't want to. The one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to undercut or undervalue the work, the time, the craftsmanship, because when you go there, you see in a lot of places the love that the Imagineers put into it, the details in things like that. But in the same way, I remember, I don't know why I'm making this connection, but when I spoke with Paul Dini many years ago, who was one of the creators of the Batman the Animated Series, but he got his start writing for shows like Droids and Ewoks, and he was a huge Star Wars fan. You think about, how could you write for Droids and Ewoks that had nothing to do with the main core characters, and why would you do that as a writer, and how terrible that must have been? And when we spoke to him, and it's something we know as adults, all those characters were off the table. It wasn't like the writer sat down and said, let's forget Luke Skywalker and Han Solo. Of course, guys like Paul Dini wanted to incorporate those. I think it's, but those were limitations that were put on them by George Lucas and others. I think it's similar to these Imagineers in Galaxy's Edge. I think that there were mandates, there were expectations that were put, and you can't tell me these Imagineers didn't want to have Darth Vader walking off the ramp of an Imperial shuttle or something, they didn't want to. You don't tell me they didn't want to build the throne room of the Death Star 2, and you could watch that battle take place. Of course they wanted.
Well, Rise of the Resistance offers you like opportunities where the visuals are on that level, but not exactly connected to the original trilogy. It's more about the sequel trilogy. That Rise of the Resistance ride is mind-blowing. I mean, it's absolutely
incredible.
Outstanding.
Whatever the line weight is, wait it. You got to go on that ride.
For sure. Multiple times if you can. But the commitment to the sequel trilogy era, obviously fueled by the top box office performance of The Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
They thought that, they had really found their spot where they can carry Star Wars into the future and have each installment be just as successful. And obviously, looking at the box office performance of that film, that's when you say to yourself, look, it's the #1 box office hit of all time domestically. At least it was then. So while they're basking in it, they're like, well, we have to commit to this.
Right.
This is the future of Star Wars. And we have the proof. Look at these numbers. So they got kind of lost in all of that, unfortunately. And some of the luster then diminished over the course of the sequel trilogy. And then they launched Galaxy's Edge. Look what we have for all you Force Awakens fans. Hello? Hello? Where'd everyone go? Oh, The Last Jedi happened. Oh, damn it.
Right.
But, I mean, that's unfortunate. And also what I'm saying isn't absolute either. I mean, but just from my perspective, that's kind of how it looks. And a lot of the decision-making that went on at Lucasfilm in the mid-2010s were fueled by the massive box office success of The Force Awakens. And so they put all their eggs in that basket. Can you blame them? Wouldn't you do the same thing?
You have the biggest movie of all time.
Yeah. So...
yeah, but I don't think they knew why they had the biggest movie of all time. Exactly.
Well, it didn't have it was non-sustainable, so
yeah, right.
Unfortunately, thank God for the Mandalorian and the streaming services. Otherwise, I don't know what kind of Star Wars we'd be talking about these days.
Yeah. Now, what we talk a lot about some of the key scenes and the settings that we'd love to see in an amusement park situation of the original trilogy be. What out of the prequels would you love to see? What environments would you like to walk into in a Galaxy's Edge type situation?
That's a great question, you know. And when you think about the prequels, what would be your favorite location from those films, from the prequel films? Like, I would like to see, like, some pod racing being represented somehow.
That puts you on Tatooine, so you have some crossover
ride,
there, right?
That could have been a ride or something.
That's a perfect ride. Pod racing? How'd they miss that? I mean...
there's some Naboo stuff I think is kind of interesting.
Naboo is the one that comes to my mind, but... here's the thing about
at the end of the day, it's kind of real world Naboo.
Yeah, you're right. I also think about just how big the canvases were for the prequel settings compared to the original trilogy, where budgets and technology kept it a little bit smaller. Cantina is somewhat confined. Even Jabba's palace is somewhat confined. Some of the sets on the Death Star are tight, but then the prequels come and everything's wide open.
Huge. Yeah.
So that would be hard to replicate in an amusement park type setting.
There's just these like, they've become sort of staple locations with Star Wars, with like the marketplace. You see that, you walk into that marketplace at Galaxy's Edge, you feel like you're on Jakku, you know?
Yeah.
And the marketplace itself has been something that we've then seen repeated now with the Mandalorian when he's walking around the streets of Navarro, or what was that first planet he visited? No, it was Navarro. And other locales have that similar sort of feel to it. So we've seen it a few times. So they have it there at Galaxy's Edge. You really feel like you're there in Star Wars. And that's cool and everything. But I think more people would have rather been dropped into, like, the trash compactor on the Death Star or something, you know?
Right.
Like, really freak us out, man.
Right.
Throw us into the trash compactor, then... you know, we take off on the Slave One and go someplace. Oh, can't call it Slave One anymore.
Boba Fett's ship. Boba Fett's
Fett
starship.
ship.
That's what they call it.
Boba Fett ship. It's like, look at you, man. Look at this dude. He's got the Wookiee scalps on his shoulder. He's got flamethrowers, knee darts. But he can't come up with a name for his ship. He's like, I can't do it, man. I had a name for it, but now it's my ship. Boba Fett's ship. What do you think about that? It's like, yeah, well, you know, the Millennium Falcon can make the jump to hyperspace. But I got Boba Fett's ship.
Chewie, get us out of here!
Who's buried in Grant's tomb? Who's flying Boba Fett's ship? that's going to wrap things up here for this week on Rebel Force Radio. Don't be sad. We'll be back next week. More Star Wars news, more Star Wars commentary.
We will be back next week. There's the Mandalorian Season 3 behind-the-scenes gallery special that's going to be
I didn't know about this.
Yeah.
All right.
A week from next Wednesday is when it drops. Wednesday the 28th.
All
so we'll talk all about that.
Mando Season 3 Disney Gallery.
Yeah, baby.
All right.
We'll be very interested in that.
For sure. How much is Dave Filoni going to be featured in that?
Ooh.
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. That'd be interesting.
I was doing Ahsoka.
Are we going to be seeing him on the set, or are we going to be seeing more of a Rick Famuyiwa presence? Or maybe Fabs himself had to do more heavy lifting than he was planning to do on Season 3.
Yeah.
Dave's off doing Ahsoka.
Right. All right. Well, what stories will come out of that? We'll bring them to you here on Rebel Force Radio next week. If you need more Rebel Force Radio in your life before next week, one great place to do it is over on Patreon. That's right, patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. You get all kinds of benefits no matter what level you jump in at. $1 gets you in the door, $1 and you're listening to exclusive podcasts you can't find anywhere else. That's right. You can't just go on to Apple Podcasts and subscribe to those. No, they're exclusive only to Rebel Force Radio's Patreon. Things like the Q&A, the Babu Freaks. You know, you've heard us talk about them. You can get some previews on the Rebel Force Radio website, see what you're missing out on. You can also get the weekly full show video. So the show that you're listening to right now, you can also watch. That's right. We make a lot of visual references. Oh, Jason put this up on the screen, or oh, we're looking at this, or we're watching a trailer. You can get that in full video, but only if you're an All Access member on RFR Patreon. Plus, it's a great community of Star Wars fans. You heard from many of them over the years on our after shows. So make sure that you jump in as soon as possible. Watch us on YouTube also. That's the home of all of our after shows. We broadcast all of our after shows exclusively on YouTube. So please subscribe, like, and comment on our videos today. Love to get those subscription numbers up. Got some videos that have performed really, really well, but so many of you that are watching them you're not subscribed. So give us a subscribe. And please, like I said, like and comment. Also on the socials, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Follow us at Rebel Force Radio. That's at RFR Rebel Force on Twitter. Everywhere else you can find us at Rebel Force Radio. The website for all things and everything Rebel Force Radio is rebelforceradio.com. But the number one way you can help us out here on RFR is to do what you're doing right now. Listen to the show. Watch, listen, engage. Subscribe if you can. Leave a review if that's possible. Just one rule, please.
Make them good.
And we'll be back next week with more Rebel Force Radio. Until then, for RFR, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.
The axe forgets, but the tree remembers.